What have you done to my daughter? What have you done? A woman stood in her kitchen, shaking, her hand gripping the phone like it might break. Her voice trembled with so much pain and her heart with so much anger. Tell me now, what happened to her? She demanded from her aunt, who was on the other side of the phone, her heart racing so badly. She could not believe what she had just found out. Her name was Ademi. She was a widow, left alone after her husband died in a car accident 5 years ago. Life had not been easy ever since his death, but she kept going for her two daughters, Wura and Fadaka. Fadaka was the older one and she was 12, while Wura was the younger one and she was just 10. Ademi worked as a banker at a bank miles away from home, but she had no choice because it was the only thing she had to do to make sure her kids survived. She had to pay school fees, buy food, and make sure her girls had everything they needed. Every time she came back from work, she was usually tired, but whenever she came home to her daughters, she would smile. They were her whole world. When the holidays came, Ademi wasn't so relieved because she knew she had to work extra for the next term's school fees. Their rent was almost due too, and she was still paying back loans from her husband's debts from his business before he died. It was an endless struggle. To top it all, nobody would stay home with her kids while she worked, and she could not afford to take them to work with her all the time. However, her older aunt from the village came to visit them in the city. She had come for the wedding ceremony of a friend's daughter. She was kind but very traditional and usually spoke of how children nowadays were so soft. That week, Faraka fell sick with a fever and stayed in bed most of the time, which incurred some additional expenses for Ademi, which she had intended to use to enroll both of them in piano classes, a colleague at her work suggested. After spending 2 days with them, Ademi's aunt, Abike, said she wanted to take the kids to the village for a few days since it was holidays. Wura, excited to go to the village where she barely remembered, agreed to go, while Fadaka retorted lazily, I would get sicker going to the village. She rolled her eyes. Ademi allowed her aunt, Abike, to take Wura with her as she bade them goodbye, while Fadaka stayed with her since she wasn't feeling well. Since Wura was lively and bubbly, Ademi knew she would enjoy her stay in the village. But 1 week later, everything changed. Ademi knew something was wrong the moment Wura returned. Her smile was gone, and she didn't speak much. It wasn't like her. At first, Ademi thought that maybe she was just tired from a new experience and environment, but that night, Wura cried in the bedroom when she wanted to pee. She said she was in pain. Ademi ran when she heard her scream and checked what was wrong. Her eyes widened with horror and her hands trembled as her heart dropped. Her daughter had been circumcised. She had been cut without her permission. What happened, Wura? What happened to you? Speak to me, she questioned. But Wura would not just stop crying. She could not say anything. Immediately, Ademi went to grab her phone and called her aunt. What have you done to my daughter? What have you done? She screamed and cried, her heart breaking so much for her poor child. She was livid. That night, she called everyone in the family and promised to take them to court and make sure they did jail for what they had done to her daughter. Everyone would go to jail, she filmed. Everyone that did that horrible thing to my daughter. But all they did was beg. It is tradition, they said. It was for our good. They begged. Did I ask you to? If I wanted, I would have asked you. Did I beg you to hurt my baby in that manner? She cried because she was so hot. It felt like she could feel the raw pains of her child who was not even saying anything. Auntie Abike begged profusely that it was Grandma who took Wura without her knowledge. Her older aunts and family pleaded profusely that it wasn't done. People don't go to court and remain families, they pleaded. After all that, Wura was never the same. She started having nightmares. She would wake up crying, sweating, and holding her stomach. Sometimes she did not even remember what the dream was all about because everything about it seemed scary. Ademi, bothered, took Wura to the hospital when she saw that the wound from the cut had not healed well. And then the doctors had to treat it all over again. They administered necessary injections and drugs to her. Watching a baby in pain broke her heart. When Wura returned to school, she became quiet. Her teacher said she didn't talk or play with her friends anymore and that the light that used to shine in her eyes was gone. It made Ademi so bothered. Then she decided to take her to the hospital again for therapy. The female doctor they met was kind and she made things seem simple as she explained to Ademi since Wura would not own up to anything or say much. She is in shock, the doctor explained gently. What happened to her was traumatic. Some girls feel numb after it. Others, like your daughter, feel very deep pain. It changes them. Ademi wiped her tears. I have heard of girls going through this in the village, but I didn't know it could be this bad. My father was the reason I escaped this, but now he is dead. I moved away from the village so that I could be free from their silly traditions, but I forgot for a second that all this still went on. Ademi cried bitterly. I am so sorry this happened. The doctor offered her kind words. Is there anything we can do? She cannot continue like this. Ademi cried. It is different for every child, but it is never okay when it is done without their understanding and without the mother's consent. This wasn't just physical pain for Wura, but it was emotional too. Her trust was broken, so I suggest we keep helping her so that she speaks of the experience. That is the first step. Ademi knew her daughter was slipping away from her because something deep inside Wura had gone silent. She tried everything. She sat beside her every night, brushed her fingers through her hair while telling her story, old jokes, lullabies from when she was little. She cooked her favorite meals, bought her new clothes, bought her soft toys, even if Wura had outgrown them. She gave her more hugs, more kisses, and more prayers. Just anything she could do to make her feel safe again. But Wura would not even look at her. There were times she just sat staring out in the window with empty eyes. After multiple sections of kindness and calmness with the doctor, Wura finally spoke. It was Grandma. Her voice trembled as she said it, like a glass about to break, as she told the story with quiet lips and shaking hands. She had remembered the long drive to the village, the unfamiliar old faces, and how they overfed her, saying she was too skinny. Auntie Abike allowed her to play with other children her age in the compound and even told her so many folktale stories she could remember. However, things switched fast when Auntie Abike took Wura to her older mother for a short while she went somewhere. That evening, Grandma asked Wura if she had become a woman and then said she should follow her when Wura could not understand what she's saying. Grandma took Wura to a house, and Wura saw other girls there. Some were older and some were younger. And the few faces of the women she saw or had cold look. Wura heard loud screams from inside when she sat down, and she noticed that girls were being led inside the house in groups. They didn't come out again, but people continued to cry. Scared, Wura decided to run. However, the women around caught up with her. She begged and begged, but they said it was for her good and that she would soon become a woman. Then she was led inside and was told to lie down on a mat. That was when Wura saw the blade they took out. It was old and rusted. One of the girls began to scream, and another tried to run, but was dragged by the arm. Wura was the third on the row. She remembered being held down in her hands, legs, and chest as her heart pounded so loudly. Immediately, she felt her thighs move apart as the old face before her took out the blade and struck the soft skin of her womanhood, chunking a pound of it. The sharp, cruel, and unforgiving pain caused Wura to scream with agony. The faces she saw all looked happy while she was experiencing the most saddest moment of her life. They sang loudly to her ears that she had become a woman and covered her cut in pieces of dried leaves before moving to the next child. Wura screamed, but no one helped her. The same blade was used on each girl. No washing, no cleaning, and it was just cut after cut, pain after pain. Wura cried until she could not cry anymore. Ademi cried bitterly after hearing what her daughter went through, and she was so broken-hearted. She was grateful her father made her escape it, but had forgotten that the practices had not died. Just how could she redeem her carelessness? How? However, Fadaka could not understand the new changes and coldness in her sister. She could not understand how Wura had become so silent and uptight than her. She knew something happened, but she did not know what because her mother did not tell her. However, the only thing she could see was how their mother poured all her love and time into Wura, always touching her forehead, holding her hands, always checking on her, and going everywhere with her. It started to hurt, and Fadaka began to feel invisible. Tired and stressed out, one day she shouted angrily, "You care about her more than me. She gets everything now. What about me, Mama? What about me? If you want me to go to the village, I will. Stop treating me like I am invisible." Ademi froze when she heard what Fadaka had said, and instantly her eyes got filled with tears. She turned, her voice trembling. "You think I want to live like this?" she cried. "You think I planned for my baby to be broken? Fadaka, I give her all I can because she has lost something she can never get back." Ademi broke down crying into her hands, whispering, "I am trying, Fadaka. I am just trying to hold all of you together and I do not know what to do." Though Fadaka could not understand what her mother was trying to say, even if she wanted to. She was just hurt that her sister, who always played around, was now silent, and that her mother now gave most of her attention to Wura. She was sad and bitter. She just could not understand. Turning 13, Wura had her first period, and the pain was excruciating. The cramps made it difficult for her to do anything, and it was a pain that doubled any pain she had ever felt. The blood brought back the memories of that day, and the pain made her relieve the horror. Every month became a nightmare, and every drop felt like a punishment. "I am so sorry. I am truly sorry, Wura." Ademi cried every time she mopped her body with cold water. She had grown distant from her family, and they couldn't repair the bridge they had burnt. Grandma was dead already, and her family said Ademi was taking the matter too seriously. Did they not do the same for us? Did we die? Why are you now acting as if we gave her a death sentence? Fadaka told them angrily to never call her anymore. At a new school, Wura didn't speak unless she had to. She didn't smile or play. During break time, she sat alone, reading or staring into space. The older girls stopped asking her to join their games, and they called her weird, cold, and a snob. But what they didn't know that was Awura wasn't being rude. She was just protecting herself. She didn't trust people anymore and didn't want anyone near her body, her heart, and her mind. The only thing she used to heal herself was stopping her class every single term. She read, solved problem, wrote essays, and scored high marks because that was the only place she had control of. In her mind, she had built a world where no one could touch her, where no one would cut her, and where no one would alter. But that world was lonely and dark, and she was all alone in it. However, there was this one girl. Her name was Justina, and she wanted to be friends with Wura. Every time she came to her and asked why she was sitting alone. Many times she would even walk Wura home, while Fadaka walked ahead with her friends and refused to walk with her sister. Why are you nice to me? Wura had to ask. Because I just like you, Justina replied with a smile. Slowly, Wura began to open up to Justina, and they became quite close. And then one day, Justina asked again, why are you so silent? And the medicine I saw in your back, what are they for? Hesitant, Wura told her. The meds are from my therapist. It is for depression and trauma. The next day, news had spread in their class that Wura was taking drugs for depression. It took extra effort from the teachers to curb the news, and it broke Wura down more because she was gossiped about everywhere. Since then, she was unable to trust anyone anymore as she became even more closeted than ever. Her friendship with Justina was over. Why did I not know Wura had depression? Why would I even have to hear it from outsiders? Fadaka got mad at her mother again for hiding things from her. Time moved on, but the wound between the sisters did not heal as fast as the calendar's page turned. Wura and Fadaka drifted apart because pain had a way of building walls even inside the same house they lived in. Wura did not fully return to who she used to be, but she began to live again. She read more books. She painted in isolation. While her sister Fadaka made friends and just lived her life outside her family, whom she was bitter towards. Fadaka grew louder and brighter while trying to shine in the silence their home had become. She got into music, dyed her hair once, made friends easily, and laughed. It was a way of surviving the heaviness, while Wura shrank further in herself while searching for a coping mechanism. However, she had fears in her heart because she had read a lot of stories about female genital mutilation survivor stories. They were terrifying. Ademi made sure Wura never missed a section, no matter how expensive it got. And some months she had to cut down on groceries just to afford it. But she didn't care. If therapy gave her daughter even a little life, she would give everything. Ademi tried to get her daughters to become close again, but it wasn't so great of an effort. Even if they smiled at pictures and laughed, things were not how it used to be. Fadaka didn't get into school quickly, and by the time she get admission, Wura was already done with high school, ready to venture into the university. And when she got into the university, she applied to study computer science in Fadaka's school. Even their mother was surprised because she thought they would never be together, even if she had tried to make them be. She opted to stay with Fadaka off campus. Even Fadaka was shocked when she realized Wura wanted to stay with her. You actually want to stay with me? She asked. Wura only shrugged. It is easier since I don't like strangers. They became roommates even if Fadaka wasn't cool with it at all. She was happy to get out of home and not to come and live like she was at home in school again. She just couldn't relate with Wura like before. Fadaka had lots of friends, and her room was always filled with laughter, loud music, and people coming in and going out non-stop, while Wura's side of the room stayed still. There were books stacked in her corner and paintings taped to the wall. She usually sat on her bed with earpiece if she wasn't in class and would not speak for hours. Sometimes, Fadaka's friends would try to talk to Wura. Hey, come hang with us. Most of the times, she would always refuse because she already had something to do. One day, one of Fadaka's friends screamed in anger when Wura picked up her bag and tossed it on Fadaka's bed after she returned from school. Your sister is so rude. It's like she doesn't even want us here. She's just the worst. And she treats us like plague, as if we do not even know what we are doing. I am sorry, Debare. Fadaka tried to beg her, but she left angrily. Livid, Fadaka turned to her sister. What is wrong with you? Why can you not even be normal? Do you not want me to have friends like you do? You took mom away from me, now you want to take my friends? She was really angry. It wasn't my fault. I do not even know why she is angry. I just took. I don't. Wura tried to defend. If this is how you will be, maybe we should just get separate rooms. Please! Fadaka retorted angrily. The sisters grew further apart and there was nothing to save it. Fadaka's friends increased and Wura just became more sad. One day, a boy named Caleb, who came to visit Fadaka from the department, scooted over to Wura's side amid the noise in the room. Hey, your father's sister's right. You read a lot, I noticed. What book is that? He tried to engage her. Wura blinked. It is quite a long one. Mm. He asked her if she liked movies or she liked music, but she just answered coldly. Giving a awkward laugh, he turned and backed away. Another time, a girl tried to put Wura into the dance circle at the party going on in their room. But Wura, who had been stressed all day, rejected her offer. Sorry, I don't do this. She mumbled and walked away, feeling so stressed out as she sat down in a corner, feeling so sad. She could not just understand what was going on. It was during one quiet night, after the endless contrast of personality between both sisters, Fadaka came back from a date and she finally said out loud she was frustrated. What is wrong with you? Why have you become this senile? She questioned Wura. You cannot even dance? Her tone itched incredulously because the girl told her what happened at the party. Wura apologized for being so awkward and she just could not give explanations. Fadaka expressed her notice that Wura never had any friends to bring home or boyfriend, and Wura told her that she was not interested. Why? She questioned. Nothing. Do you even like anyone? Wura wanted to know. It was then that silence fell into the room at Fadaka's question. Wura, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? Wura stared at her sister sadly. I don't know, she whispered. I think I'm not just normal. Feeling bad, Fadaka whispered. Hey, don't say that. I mean it, Wura said, finally looking up. Everyone talks about love and kissing and dating and parties. I don't even like people touching me. I can't even stand the idea of somebody wanting my body. It feels wrong. Fadaka sat down on the edge of Wura's bed, quiet now, as she stared at her, so clueless. Can I know what is wrong? To be honest, I feel so angry and bitter that mom still calls every time and asks about you the most. She was never like that until you went to the village. And it's been years now. I still do not understand it. That was when Wura narrated everything that happened in the village to Fadaka, bit by bit, experience by experience and how she has gone for therapy all these years. What happened at school with her friend then and why she had been living this way, unable to hold conversations with people. Fadaka was shocked. She was broken-hearted. She did not even know how to act. Hearing everything her sister had recounted to her. Oh my goodness. Are you for real? Her voice hinted with great pain because it landed as a bomb to her heart. Did you really go through all of this? She was shocked, livid at herself, and broken at the same time. Oh my goodness, I feel like the worst sister on earth. Why did you never tell me? Fadaka broke down in tears. Because I wanted you to live your life, not pitying me and feeling like you needed to make me happy. I just wanted you to be you. Oh my goodness. I feel so bad now. Fadaka cried bitterly. I am so sorry. I am really sorry. Fadaka cried so much until she couldn't, feeling like the worst sister on earth. She felt so bad that she had been hard on Wura all these years without knowing what went wrong. She was angry at her mom too for not telling her and for making her feel like the worst sister.
I am so sorry for not telling you too. Wura cried together with her sister, and they cried so much till they could no longer cry anymore. The sisters slept side by side that night for the first time in a long time, and peace restored in both their hearts. The two of them became close, and Fadaka became different. She stopped inviting her noisy cycles to the house and instead started spending more time with Wura, trying to get to know her better. They now walked to school together and they were always seen around everywhere. Fadaka became so understanding and calm that Wura's social awkwardness began to get better. The happiness she never really thought was missing was restored in her life because the bond between her and her sister became stronger than ever. Ademi became so happy with the development and she apologized profusely to Fadaka for neglecting her and allowing her to grow up on her own alone, thinking that she would not understand what happened to her sister. It became clear to her that the only person who could have a person's back unconditionally was the person's family. The family became happier and they went on different trips together, feeling so much happy and joyful. More than anything, Ademi felt so much joy and peace restore in her heart because her family was finally living in harmony after long years of resentment and anger. Wura graduated top of her level after 4 years in the university, and she was the quiet girl everyone remember who barely spoke, never showed up at parties, but aced everything. She was given so many awards, and everyone was so proud of her. After graduating and going for youth service, Wura got a job instantly and started working at one of the biggest technology companies in the city. It was a job that allowed her to work quietly and be left alone when she needed space. It was everything she needed. However, her family were still a little bothered that Wura talked about nobody. She was always buried in work, visited home every time to see her mother and sister with lot of groceries, but never talked to them about a man that she was in a relationship with. One evening, when Wura and Fadaka met at a restaurant to just eat casually, Fadaka mentioned a guy to her. His name was George. He had once come by to pick Fadaka and her friend from campus, and he was a cousin to Fadaka's friend. He was soft spoken, polite, good looking, and very calm. You know, George, he asked about you. Fadaka pitched in smoothly. He also said he liked how quiet you were. Wura looked up. He did. Of course he did. Fadaka was enthusiastic, seeing how she was interested. That was all it took. Over the next few months,
George and Wura met at a restaurant to eat, and they talked casually about their work. Slowly and carefully, they got closer, taking short walks together and just talking about life generally. George never made Wura feel uncomfortable and never reached for her without asking first. He listened and respected her silence. And for the first time in her life, Wura didn't feel like she was defending herself in someone's presence. She didn't feel washed but felt seen. Visiting her mother one day, she told her that she was getting married and Ademi was shocked. Married to who? Ademi wanted to know. George, of course, Wura answered. But you're not even dating him. Fadaka told me. Ademi questioned. I just feel safe with him, Wura replied, and that is all that what matters to me. Ademi did not argue with her, but she prayed in her heart that Wura had made the right choice. The wedding was small and beautiful, and it was filled with merriment, laughter, and excitement. Wura smiled in her white dress, and for a moment it felt like everything she had been through had led to her final bus stop of happiness. It felt like the peace she had earned with her family, his family, and her colleagues at work. It was a very wonderful day. However, the night of the wedding went red. Wura could not stand being touched, and it was so hard for them to consummate their marriage. Regardless, George was still kind, patient, and gentle. He gave her time and space. However, no matter how they waited, Wura could not climb the barrier, no matter how patient he was. Sex felt like betrayal to her body. She flinched at his touch, stiffened at closeness, and sometimes cried in the dark bedroom after he had given up trying. He waited, and she continued to apologize again and again. But the guilt in her heart grew, and so did the space between them. Wura was not happy, and even if they tried to move past it, she felt so bad for being a barrier in the marriage. Things began to change, and George barely came home anymore after his business trips. Wura would call and call, but he would not pick up. Most times she waited for him to come back home, sitting at the living room, but whenever he came, he would come very late. She began to sleep alone and eat alone in their very big house. Sleep offered her no respite, and she worked overtime at office just to cover up for her amplifying sadness. Whenever he came home finally, she would ask what was wrong and why he was being so distant, but as usual, he would say nothing and that it was just his busy work schedules. Making up her mind one day after George came back from another business trip, Wura decided to force herself and give it a try. However, when she tried to kiss him, he just stood up and left instantly. That was when Wura knew that things had taken the worst turn in her marriage. Her heart was becoming more lonely every single day, and she was so tired of everything. She was tired of herself, but she didn't know what to do. She could barely sleep in her matrimonial room anymore and was always sitting in the living room whenever she was home, staring at open spaces. She was so stressed out and just wanted rest. Her heart was lonely, and everything around her was depressing. She had nothing to rely on. Ademi had just returned from the market one hot afternoon after shopping for groceries and was about to start preparing them when she received a call from Wura. She was so happy to hear from her and asked how she was, how her husband was faring, and how she planned to send them lots of dried fish, palm oil, and vegetables, but was taken aback by the utmost silence from the other side of the phone. Wura, is everything fine? She asked, seeing how silent she was. I am coming home, Wura said calmly. Is everything okay? Ademi's eyebrows furrowed. I and George are getting divorced. She dropped the bombshell. Ademi's heart dropped as she opened her mouth in shock, her head aching so badly as if she had heard wrongly, the phone nearly slipping from her fingers. Wura, what do you mean? But Wura had already hung up before Ademi could even ask. The poor woman almost lost her mind to what she had just heard. When Wura returned home, she came alone and dragged her luggages through the living room with a sad face. She was looking so rough and tattered. She didn't cry or speak. She just moved into her old room, locked the door, and slept for almost a full day. When Ademi came home, she went to Wura's room, bothered. Wura, talk to me. What happened? You were fine. You said you were fine. What is wrong? However, Wura sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the window, her eyes empty and far away, as if she was watching her life from the outside. I couldn't make it work. It was my fault. She didn't say more than that to her mother. For days, Ademi tried to understand. She made her daughter's favorite meals, sat beside her, and asked softly, Wura, was it him? Did George cheat on you? Did he hurt you? She asked. It is not it, Wura answered gloomily. Then what? Talk to me, please. Let me help you, she begged her. But Wura shut down everyone. She would just nod or shake her head whenever she was asked questions, and she never explained or gave any answers. She barely ate or slept. Fadaka came back home the moment she heard what happened, and she was so bothered about her sister. She tried to talk to Wura too. I feel like all this is my fault. I was the one who brought you two together in the first place. Fadaka expressed her guilt. It is not your fault, sis. It is mine, okay? Don't blame yourself, was all Wura said to her. Wura returned back to work like nothing happened and did not tell anybody her marriage had ended. She just worked herself to bones even harder than she had ever done, not sleeping and barely eating. In just a year, she got her third promotion and was doing so well, with an increase in her salary, business opportunities, and business trips. Her job's acknowledgement became her escape route. She also started praying more than she had ever done, became fervent in her service to God as a church worker, and tried to find peace in His presence, even if her heart was always heavy. You have been appointed to go on a business trip to close a deal, Wura's boss informed her. It was a routine trip for work and a conference in a small coastal city in which she did not even want to go. But her boss told her that it was just for 2 weeks and that it was a new position appointment. The city Wura went to was quiet and slow, and for the first few days, she locked herself in the suit, working endlessly while eating chips and drinking soda. A few times she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her suite with a glass of wine in her hand, staring at the bright city view from her room so sadly. After 3 days, she decided to go out for fresh air. She walked through the markets, bought fruit on her way, and just enjoyed the cool breeze. She felt a little different than usual because it felt like no one knew her, that no one knew what she was going through, and could not see beyond who she was. On the fourth day of casually visiting a fruit seller every day to buy something, she got close to Nina, an older Cuban woman who she purchased apple from every day she came out. You carry something heavy, Nina had said, handing her a cup of ginger tea. How do you know? Ura was surprised. Your eyes don't rest, Nina smiled, but your heart wants to. Then Nina told her about a special doctor who was young, sharp, and unusually kind, and treated not just the body but also the soul. You're lucky he's around this time of the year. I heard he heals broken souls, Nina told her. On her way back to her suit after leaving the market, Mura ran into a man who was struggling to pick up his groceries that were scattered all over the floor. Politely, she squatted and helped him to pick it all up. Thank you, the young man said, but she had already turned to leave. Later that night, Wura thought about what Nina had told her, and she found herself standing at the hospital gate the next day, unsure why she was there. But she walked in and spoke to a nurse. And that was when Wura met him. the man she had helped to pick groceries the day before. His name was Tunde Edward, and he was a doctor. He was tall, calm, and a gorgeous, dark-skinned man. He had a breathtaking gaze that stole breath at a glance and had a very charming smile. Please take your seat. He pointed to where she would sit. I am Dr. Tunde Edward. He introduced himself with a smile. I am not sure why I'm here, Wura confessed, sitting across from him, not acknowledging seeing him the previous day. That's okay, he said gently. You came already, and that is enough for today. The therapy process was a little tricky at first because Wura could not bring herself to tell her ugly stories confidently. Her mind was filled with fears and doubts because she could not trust anyone again. And for the first time after a long time of visiting the hospital, Wura finally spoke about everything. She talked about her pain from the very beginning, her trauma, her marriage, the deep, unspeakable shame, and how she found out that she might have vaginismus. Dr. Tunde Edward decided to help by telling his own mother's real story, which was related to ours. She went through it too and was a FGM survivor, he said quietly. He told Wura that her own culture circumcised women that were about to get married and how it was another level of agonizing pain for a grown-up lady to go through. He told her about how they caught her, the terrible healing process because the cut was bad, and how it had done more harm by stitching her up in the wrong way. It was painful and difficult for her childbirth because they had to open up her stitches again, but the child died due to birth complications. Tunde Edward continued. Even with the pain, my mother wanted to give her husband a child and tried having another one, but the baby also died. It was a cycle amid the painful sex, birthing, opening, and closing of the stitches. She became temporarily paralyzed after the second failed birth, and it was an escape from death. When one of her family came to take her from the village for a treatment, they found out that she was pregnant with me again and abortion was not even an option. So, a good neighbor made them take her to a big hospital, and there she was able to have a cesarean section where she had me after 10 years of our marriage. So, you can do it, Miss Wura, he said, smiling. Vaginismus has nothing on you. That alone gave Wura strength. Is she still alive? She asked with a pitiful look in her face. No, she is not. My mother died 4 years ago as a fulfilled mother of a successful son. I am sorry, Wura whispered. No, it's okay. I'm fine now. Dr. Tunde Edwards smiled. One thing led to another, and they became closer than expected. Wura extended her trip because of the therapy sections, and she felt more alive because he treated her so nicely and warmly. With time, therapy with Dr. Tunde wasn't just appointments anymore. They took walks together after each sections, visited quiet beaches, went for a drive, and sometimes they just sat in silence, listening to waves. They went to lots of places, and for the first time, Wura sincerely had fun. She talked more than she had ever talked to anyone and laughed so genuinely about so many things he said. She became more forward with actions, and she was like a person she had never been in her life before. She went for a minor operation too, received further diagnosis, physical and psychological therapy, and also received treatment for vaginismus. She attended yoga classes also to take away the trauma in her body, all in which he accompanied her to. One evening, George turned to Wura, his gaze soft. I don't know why I care this much about your healing, he said. I have seen older cases, but this is different. Wura smiled. I have never also felt safe like this, not even in marriage. Their hands brushed, and both of them could feel the jolt of electricity that erupted just from the grazing of their skin. against one another. Sitting in silence, they both swallowed, hiding what they both felt, their hearts beating faster than normal. A few days later, Tunde had to leave and to return to a teaching fellowship, and Wura accompanied him to the airport. It wasn't forever, but it already felt that way. Wura tried to stay strong, but it was harder than she expected. Though they talked, called, sent pictures, and continued their sections online, it was hard for Wura. She had fallen too deeply in love with him already. Even when she returned back home to her job, she became happier and reconciled with her mother and sister. Both Ademi and Fadaka were surprised to see her change so drastically upon her return, but they did not understand why. They were just happy she made improvements. However, Tunde got so busy that they could barely talk anymore, and most times Wura was always staring at her phone, waiting for his call, or trying his number incessantly without it going through. Wura, heartbroken again, decided to survive it, hoping that she would not lose the man she had given her entire heart to. She tried to live her best life as much as possible and also tried to help ignorant people know the dangers of female genital mutilation. Soon, she started a support group for FGM survivors and taught young girls to reclaim their voices. She shared her story and helped girls that had become a victim of it get proper treatment they needed. One day at the mall after work, Wura ran into the most unexpected person of her life. It was Justina, and Wura did not know how to act when she saw her, considering the fact that the two never spoke again after the incident in school. I'm so sorry for that time, Wura. I was so jealous. Justina finally apologized. It is fine. I am over it. She smiled happily, feeling glad that she had finally gotten over every pain of her past. Months later, Wura NGO had become a major FGM awareness program, and it was a day for her to present her new initiative. There were so many people present to listen to her, and the donators of her NGO were so glad to have her on stage. During the after party, someone told Wura that the biggest supporter of the NGO, who was always too busy to attend, had made it that night. When Wura stepped out to go and show her gratitude to the person, it turned out to be Dr. Tunde Edward. He was standing in a corner, his eyes full of everything they never said, and he was holding a bouquet of white hibiscus. A feeling of elation swept over Wura seeing him, and a gasp escaped her. It's been a while, she said, as they stood together in the balcony of the banquet hall, the cold air caressing their skins. I couldn't stop thinking about you, he replied instead. You were never just a patient, Wura. You were always more, he smiled. Straight up, the two shared a beautiful, passionate kiss that communicated the heavy feelings they never spoke out loud. I love you so much, Wura. Sunday confessed his love. They married quietly in the most beautiful place ever, and it was filled with the kind of happiness that Wura had never experienced before. She had never felt towards anyone the strong affection, attraction, and love that she felt towards Tunde. It was overwhelming. On their wedding night, the two sat on the bed as his hands wrapped around her body slowly while gently trailing down it. I will be gentle, I promise, he whispered in her ears, and it sent tremors down her body as her belly fluttered with excitement. Sunday knew what to do to get Wura ready, and he gave her the kind of feelings and thrills that she had never gotten in her entire life. The kind of satisfying pleasure that she had never gotten and could never ever thought she would achieve. Cuddled in his arms after a passionate night, Wura whispered, I love you so much, Cindy Edward. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me, she confessed. I love you too, Wura. Without you, my life is incomplete. And more than anything, Ura was so glad that she found him, that he helped her to become the best version of herself, and he helped her to become a different person than she was and she had always been all her life. Few months later, Ura got pregnant, and it was so exciting for the new couples as they invited all the family for a big baby shower. Few months later, she gave birth to twin babies, a boy and a girl. And for the very first time in her life, Ura did not just survive her entire traumatic childhood, she lived and became the best version of herself alongside her loving husband, Dr. Tunde Edward.